Hey, okay. Welcome, everyone. We are live now. We had some technological difficulties, so thank you for your patience. We'll call this work session to order. And our first item of business is Red Bank debt service analysis and discussion. And first, we'll call up Mr. Granum and Fickle.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. By Resolution 24-1672, the previous Commission wisely established a municipal financial advisor relationship with Cumberland Securities Incorporated. The Commission established this relationship as we enter into a period of time when the city may be considering major capital projects and will need a respected and capable financial advisor to ensure the best possible financial advice is available to the Commission. Today represents our next step towards building a professional relationship between Cumberland Securities and the City of Red Bank. Here to present a look at our current debt is the Vice President of Cumberland Securities, Mr. John Werner. Mr. Werner is the former Chief Financial Officer for Knox County. In that capacity, he frequently had the occasion to work with the General Assembly, state constitutional officers such as the Comptroller, and local officials to bring about creative solutions to local finance and affirm the strong financial standing of the county. In addition to John's role as financial advisor, he is also involved in performing numerical analysis and technical financial structuring for the firm's municipal finance clients, such as Red Bank. Mr. Werner has an undergraduate degree and an MBA in finance from the University of Tennessee. Go Vols. John is a qualified municipal advisor representative with the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board and is registered with the Securities Exchange Commission. Welcome, John. Come on up.
Welcome, Mr. Werner. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. As an aside, when the Werners moved to Tennessee after the Civil War, they established residency in Red Bank. And there is a Werner Street named after me. I don't know if it's the same family, but there ain't a lot like us around here. Okay? I want to hand this out to you for the record, and I will give another one too. And I will submit one also so we can have this as part of the file for this evening. It's an updated version of the of your summary of debt based on your most recent audit, okay? And it's very straightforward because right now you up to this point have a couple. Oh, I'm sorry, let me back up a little bit. And this is going to be effective July 1, 2025 for this upcoming fiscal year. So there are some things that, and you'll notice that are coming up for payment here pretty soon that are not going to be included in this because we're looking into the next fiscal year when we'll be probably talking about any additional debt that the city may be contemplating at that point. The point I wanted to bring here is that this, so far, what the city has done has been very, very conservative and a good reflection of what the town is about, or the city is about. But at some point, you might need to make that bigger leap of faith. And how does that do that? Well, the summary of debt is the most basic tool that we use when we start looking at that. We couple that along with the audit as well to see what the revenues have looked like. We work closely with your staff, almost as an adjunct finance department on your public debt side. And we talk about, projected revenues, which we've already started those exercises and started trying to determine where your revenue sources may be without even any additional legislative action from your body, and how that might lay into what our upcoming debt service might be. And then at that point, then we will make recommendations to you based on structure, anticipated revenues, and what we might recommend to this board on how to make that next step. Our firm has been around in business now for over 100 years. Many of the things that you all have read in Tennessee Code Annotated in terms of how we go about with public finance, our firm helped write that. I personally have written a section of that based on how to do something at that point was never done in the state of Tennessee. And if you want to make your heart sink, wait till the comptroller walks by you when you go talk to the Senate And as he walks by, he whispers, "This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard." But it passed nonetheless. But it's that kind of creativity. And with that 100 years, we also represent more clients than any other municipal advisory firm in the state of Tennessee across the nation. We do more deals. And the reason why this is important to you as my client is we are in the market so often. We've got a really good pulse on what's going on in the market, where, what's favorable, what's not favorable, what are the rates should be. And I wish I could say, and we can tell you exactly the right time to go to the market and get the absolute lowest rate at the time of that, of the year or something like that. But unfortunately, that would be misleading, and I can't do that. But we do have a good sense of the rhythm of the market and where we think it might be most favorable to hopefully maximize the best rate for the upcoming calendar year. I also want to bring a point to you that the way that in the past you've been doing, your conservatism is, like I said, been very well received. I think you've done a good job. One of the things we can also help you with is not only with great big deals, but maybe sometimes doing a series of small deals, cobbling them together into one bond offering, and we can help you track the spending on all those, on the debt service for these individual deals into one bigger deal, because you might have a better execution, which means you might have a better interest rate. And I can make an example. If you look at, and let me just kind of go back to the summary of debt. Let's just pick, if you'll go to page 1. It's the $1.527 million TMBF loan. Now, right now, at a rate of 2.05%, that sounds pretty good. And you have 3 years left on the debt. You only have $28,000 of interest that you have to pay. And that's not a bad, I mean, that's even if you missed it, it doesn't hurt, right? When you look at when the deal was last done, when it was originally done, when it was actually closed, if I told you that the interest rate for another entity just right up the road, Eastridge, we did one that had an 18-year maturity, and we had it at a 1.5% interest rate. Well, that's really not enough to move the needle at 0.5% for all the interest over the life of that loan. It's probably just a few $1,000s. But if you take that into consideration for a much larger deal, that could come into some real money. And if I also told you that your interest rate could have been actually possibly, if it had done on a bigger deal, if it was structured more like the Eastridge deal, you may have been spending 3 to 4 times too much interest. Because as your municipal advisor, we are required by federal law to be your fiduciary. That means we will always be on your side. Now, to the bond fund's credit, they clearly put it in their resolutions. They do not look out for your best interest. They look out for their best interest. But you do it because you have a relationship with them. But my hope is my relationship with you will make it that not only do we have a good relationship, we also do a really good job of going out and going into the market and getting you not just one bid. Here's your loan, sign your name. But in some cases, 5, 6 bidders. And we're going to pick out the one with the lowest true interest cost on the day of the sale. And that could be true across the board here for all of your different projects that you have. That's basically, that's the dog and pony show of what we do and how we do it. We also work with you on your continuing disclosure requirements. If you ever do a competitive public sale and it's a publicly traded bond issue, we will help you also do your disclosures if you want us to. Martin picks up the phone on a regular basis. Hey, John, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Where are we heading? All these things are value-added opportunities that we do with our firm. It does not cost the firm one nickel. The only time we ever get paid is when we actually do a transaction in which we'll say, this is what we're going to charge for this. This is what bond counsel is going to charge. This is what the rating agents are going to pay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and again, it's all part of what we do. I'd like to think our fees are very fair. Obviously, they must be because of the number of clients we've been able to keep on our roll for the amount of years that we've been able to do it. And I'm really appreciate the opportunity to get a chance to help out Red Bank, because this is where we cut our teeth. This is where we think we provide the best service. You all do a great job of doing a lot of things right here, growing a small, bustling city. It's pretty much like trying to change the tire while the truck's running down the interstate in many regards. But rest assured, you don't do public finance on a regular basis. Well, this is what we do for a living. And we love to apply that expertise, because we hope that when everything is said and done, you'll be able to tell all of your contemporaries across the state of Tennessee, yeah, we do business with Cumberland Securities. It's been a great experience. And for that, we get a lot of pleasure out of. If you look at the summary of debt, it's very straightforward. And there are some assumptions in here, because I have not seen the loan documents themselves. But by and large, it's pretty straightforward. What your interest rates are, when you're expecting your payments are, payments and interest. But more importantly, let's go back to the last couple of pages on here. And if you look at how much debt you have outstanding, approximately $1.6 million, and you can see on the very top of the page, this is on page 5. After fiscal year 2028, July 1, 2028, you have an inordinate amount of money that you previously been spending on debt service that you can apply that to new debt service. And if we can replicate this sort of thing, and where you have a downward sloping principal and interest payment schedule, that might actually work to your advantage, because you'll probably have other projects coming in. And if we can layer debt on top of debt and try to maintain as much of a level revenue source for that to pay for your debt, that would be all the better. And not have to, I don't want to use the ugly word taxes or anything like that, but worry about taxes, okay? If we could just use natural growth and let things just kind of build upon itself. The only thing that I would recommend for you is if you go to the very last page, page 7, you have just the pie chart. The pie chart indicates the split between variable and fixed rates. 15 years ago, interest rates went down to 0. And that was back in 2006, 7, and 8, back in the great financial crisis. And at that time, variable rate was next to nothing. I mean, you couldn't do any better. Then on March of 2016, I noticed that the interest rates had jumped. And someone said, oh, that's just when they wanted to pay taxes. I beg to differ. And interest rates began to move upward. Then you had the bigger world banks interacting with each other, distorting the market. And it got to the point where all of a sudden, where variable was supposed to be the long-term value play, where you paid next to nothing for your money, that all of a sudden variable is actually less than a 10-year handle on your fixed rates. And we were able to actually convert long-term fixed rates at a rate that was lower than the prevailing ongoing variable rate. And again, what I talked about earlier about the deal we did with East Ridge, we did just a little bit over almost $8.5 million of making that conversion in 2021. And their rates that we fixed at that time cannot be beat even in today's variable rate market, which is considerable. So again, being in the market, know what's going on, and there's a good place for variable rate debt. I'm not against it. We use it a lot, but we also want to really take that in consideration, that if you're going to have this much variable rate debt, compare that against what your fund balance is, your actual cash, to manage these interest rate bumps. And there have been lots of variability. If you had a pure variable rate program, then you might want to consider a little bit more fixed rate debt and take that risk off the table. It's the same sort of thing that y'all would do if you went and bought a $500,000 house. You wouldn't want to buy a variable rate debt mortgage. most people wouldn't at least, because they want to make sure that they know what their payments are going to be for the foreseeable future. And yeah, some people on the short run may get a little bit of a bonus, but more often than not, they get stung at the very end when all of a sudden that thing flips over 6 months, 12 months down the road, or they reset it 5 years down the road. And again, these are the kinds of things you want to watch out for you. Okay. So that's my dog and pony show, Mayor. I really don't have much more to discuss other than when you are ready to have those conversations, I will start interacting more with staff, and I'll be glad to come down to any of these meetings. Martin asked me, he goes, boy, I sure hope you had some other work down here. I said, no, Martin, I came down here for the city. And that's what we do for a living. So, and again, I guess I'm coming home to sort of speak, So anyway, do you all have any questions for me while I'm here or anything like that, particularly with the summary of debt? Or what we do, or how we do it?
Did you have any indicator on these are current loans, which ones are fixed rate and which are the long-term?
The best I could tell was if you look at, go back to page 5. I am guessing that maybe the 21 and the 22 were, actually, as a matter of fact, I think, let me back up a little bit. I believe that they're actually all fixed rate instruments, okay? The thing in this particular case with the bond fund is they have a thing that's called a fixed rate program where they will have it in place fixed for a certain amount of time, 5 years, 7 years, and then they will reset that rate in 7 years out. And you're still, the important part is you're still paying for a 5-year rate lock. You're still paying probably way too much money than if you had gone and done a more of a conventional capital outlay note and you let multiple banks give you a rate and lock that thing in. And listen, instead of having a rate reset, which is completely at the call of the bank and you have no say so whatsoever, we might want to put a call on it in 5 years, and then the city can decide whether they want to refinance it.
Okay.
Or they can decide if they want to pay it off because they have extra cash in the fund balance. Whatever, you have the options. You need the options, not the bank. You all do. And there are plenty of banks out there that are willing to help you get there.
Thank you.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry if I cut you
Go
guys
ahead.
off. I was gonna say, so, in our, not too distant future, we'll have several larger capital projects kind of come into the fold. Now, when you guys are out talking to the banks, are you negotiating with the banks for a lower rate, or are you shopping from one bank to the next and sort of our liaison in that?
Yeah, we will absolutely be your liaison. That's what you pay for us to do for you. You do not have to take our advice. There's no penalty if you don't. But I'll remind you that we've had lots of experience doing this sort of thing. But no, if let's take some of these capital outlay notes. What we would do is let's say you want to do one for $500,000. We would go out and we would send that out to about 30 banks, not the regions down the bank. Down the corner, we would send it to the regions at their regional office that manages municipal finance, which is in Chattanooga. We would also do the same with, we'd send it to Memphis to be with First Horizon. We would do numerous other banks, regional, super regional, national banks. We would also then, if you have a particular bank that you all do business with, and if you want, and I believe it was like First Horizon, we would make sure that First Horizon would get the credit. The local office could get the credit, but we would still make the decisions be made by the people in Memphis. But we would send that out. We would give them all a very strict RFP as to what the requirements are from the city. And then once we have that all put together, then we will receive those bids back, and then we will start massaging the numbers, start looking at those sort of things. And then if there's one that is head and shoulders above all the others, there's really not a whole lot more to talk about. If there's maybe a small difference between Bank A and Bank B, we might have them kind of start competing against themselves until they come up with a number that we think is satisfactory. But then we will always show all the numbers on the day that the bids are due. We will open those bids, we will share those with everyone, and then we'll say, these are our next steps that we're going to be doing. But your point is well made, Commissioner. We will be working for you in every aspect. Now, that's a small capital outlay note. For some of these other projects that you're talking about, state law prohibits going that, there are other opportunities better than a capital outlay note, given the size of the deal you want to have. Plus, you want to be able to extend probably your amortization schedule well beyond a 15-year or 12-year period. And that's when we would do a competitive public sale. And when we do that, the notification goes out literally to the world as far as the people who buy bonds, municipal, tax exempt bonds. Fortunately, there's a lot of people that are very aggressive to buy Tennessee paper. They love the way the state operates. They understand the credit rating and how local governments work and how local governments are an extension of the state. Even at the city level, you still have a lot of things that you replicate that are done at the state. So when they come in to buy to buy paper in the state of Tennessee, they already have a good appetite. We would probably need to be talking to maybe some of the underwriters out there and some of the rating agencies, because you don't have any publicly traded paper on the books right now. But you wouldn't be the first time we've ever sent anybody to market. And we would help you through that entire process, literally turnkey, putting together the preliminary official statements, getting in front of the rating agencies, doing those interviews, getting the final rating out, sending that notice out to the investment companies. We will then help on the day of the sale. Then we'll collect all that. And there's a lot of minutia that goes every time we do a competitive public sale like that. But again, we manage every bit of that process all the way down to the closing. And other than some things we might need to have you for the POS, the preliminary official statement, because it's not publicly available or easily publicly available. And then also when we turn around and we're actually doing the day of the sale, we might have some questions like, okay, we've generated this amount of money. How do you want to, you've got some extra proceeds. Do you want to keep it and put that into your construction fund? Or do you want to have fewer bonds, still take the amount of money, but you pay less money back, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These are options that we work on. And then you go down to the day we actually do the closing. And I said to him, Mayor, I need to block out an hour and a half of your time so you can sign your life away on 1,000 documents, okay? But other than that, it's kind of kidding on stuff. We walk you through that, and it could be Knoxville, Tennessee, which is a long-term client of ours, Murfreesboro, Tennessee, Red Bank, East Ridge. We walk everybody through the exact same sort of thing, because this is what we do. This is the service that we convey to our clients.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. You're welcome.
Yes, ma'am. Did you have a question?
I did. We have our commission retreat coming up, and one of the things I anticipate we may be spending some time talking about is our first ever capital improvements plan.
Right.
So my understanding is that you're telling us we have a lot of debt expiring and
We
a
do.
lot of headroom to fund a capital improvements plan.
Correct.
So that is your firm's official stance and recommendation.
You have money to get started on, yes, ma'am. But I have not seen the plan yet. Because if you went out there, like, you have enough debt right now to fund $1.6 million worth of debt. You've got enough cash and then some. If you go out and do a $10 million project, you're going to have to start thinking about other revenue sources. And that's what will help you figure that out too.
Okay.
Okay, dokie. But the other thing is too, you don't have to do the whole 10 million probably all at one time either.
Right.
You can layer that out in strats. And the reason why I suggest that is, and a lot of municipal advisory firms don't talk about it, but we'll do it right now. It's not so much about the execution on the day of the sale. It's how you manage your money after the sale. Because in today's environment, we have an inverted yield curve, which means short-term rates right now are actually higher than maybe what your long-term fund cost of funds are. So if you can deposit money into a construction fund, and while it's still sitting there waiting to be spent, and you can earn more money than you otherwise legally would be allowed to do, as long as you meet certain spend down requirements and that sort of thing, then that's extra money that you can either use to pay off debt service, or you can apply it to the project, or whatever the case might be. But this 2-year window is very specific. It has a very specific milestones that you have to hit as far as how much money you spend. And we want to make sure we work with the city, can you do, how comfortable are you with doing this? Because if we put $10 million and I say, well, Martin, how quickly can you spend this down? And they say, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. That doesn't work well. It doesn't work well at all. So we might need to break up a $10 million project into a couple of things or a couple of times. So we want to sit there and look at what does the cost of funding do during that time, okay? And and also the opportunities to take advantage, because this inverted yield curve will not last forever. It just won't.
Commissioners, any other questions for Mr. Werner?
I think I did.
Yes,
Thank you. These are current debt, and so you have collected the information and placed it in the different, I call them buckets,
Yes, ma'am.
different reports.
That's correct.
So what the previous record is as you have organized it here.
Yeah, well, it's the same format. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
okay.
And what I did is I added the one that you closed May of last year, okay? That showed up in your most recent audit that was recently published. And I just picked that up and I actually took the schedule right out of it, and the dollar amounts and everything match right up within $20, $40, something like that. And then also, if you look at the one that's probably in your packet, there was a street improvement or sidewalks or something like that. There was another fund that is not in this one because you pay that one off before the end of this fiscal year.
Oh, okay.
So it's not going to be showing up here. It's not that I forgot it. It's just, it's paid off. It's
Mhm.
matured.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's good.
Sidewalk improvements. It was the streetscape fund. or
State
something.
Street Aid. State Street Aid.
That's it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
I really look forward to the opportunity. Thank you so much. And I hope that you will enjoy the opportunity to work with us as much as I look forward to working with you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Werner.
Thank you.
All right. Moving right along to item number 2, brief commission on administration and finance goals. City Recorder Carey.
I apologize, it's not gonna be up here, I don't do that part of this. Okay, so the Administration and Finance Department is made up of myself, Tracy Perry, Chris Pickle, our Chief Finance Officer, Summer Sheldon, who is our Assistant City Recorder and Public Relations, April Sledge, Assistant Chief Finance Officer, and Payroll, and Ruthie Rowan, who is our part-time finance clerk. We set several goals last year. I just want to go over some that we set and what we've done so far to accomplish them. As you have heard several times, I'm sure, is we're trying to be an employer of choice. So one of the things we did was looked at our life insurance for our full-time employees. Initially, it was at 10,000, then we bumped it to 50, and then last year we were able to bump it to 75,000. We also were able to bring spouses from 10,000 to 25,000, and children from 2,500 to 10,000. And we switched carriers to Mutual of Omaha and saved about $2,000 per year, even with the increase. One of the goals was to make the city's municipal code easier to navigate. So now it is housed by Unicode, which is part of Civic Plus. It's clickable. It has a table of contents. You can see what's changed where previously you had no idea what had changed. So now you can see ordinances as we update them. We've had city policies that were part of our employee handbook. When we updated the handbook in 2023, we left the policies out so that we could make it easier to update those policies because they just don't get revisited very often. And right now, I'm working on getting them revamped. We go through the, I'm sorry. Oh, what does CLT stand for?
City leadership, team.
City leadership team. I can think of it.
My direct report, basically,
Yeah, all of the city manager's direct reports.
and the deputies,
Yes, and the deputies.
deputy chief and deputy
And
chief.
we bring together what we think is a better policy. We bring it to you guys for approval. Once it's approved, the city manager signs off on it. I'm now housing the approved policies on the employee portal on the website, which is where employees can access all sorts of things once I get it on there. Once I have all of the policies updated, I do intend to make it more readily available for commissioners and the public. Just not ready for that yet. One of my goals was to formalize my additional function as the finance director. I did it.
Thank you, CMFO Perry.
So now the city has 3. At the end of this year, we should have 4.
Incredible.
Well equipped.
And it's a very lengthy process,
It is.
very
It takes-
tedious, lots
it
of
takes a
exams and studying, yes, over the course of a year,
I
so.
hope you're-
Volunteers.
I hope you're all putting those letters at the end of your email signature.
I couldn't wait. One of our goals is to recruit and place solid qualified people in the appropriate positions for the best effectiveness. Last year, we successfully recruited and hired 9 full-time and 9 part-time employees.
Across all of our departments.
Yes,
Yeah.
across the city.
Thank you.
Then a little bit about each of our individual folks. Chief Finance Officer, Ms. Chris Pickle. She automated our positive pay for accounts payable and payroll, which means we have less fraud. It identifies fraud a little quicker. Initiated monthly one-on-one meetings with department heads to discuss budgeted spending. Initiated monthly commission financial updates. So she comes in at the second meeting of every month to let you guys know where we're at. She has assisted sister cities with the implementation and automation of their pay positive systems. Began her CMFO training in January. Because our ultimate goal with Ms. Pickle is to take over the Director of Finance position. So that's where we're going with that. She continually reinforces and builds new relationships with Red Bank financial institutions, all Hamilton County resources, MTAS, which you're all familiar with, and Johnson, Murphy, and Wright, who are our auditors. Currently doing orientations with each department to introduce herself to staff and familiarize herself with each of the department's functions. Our Public Affairs Assistant City Recorder, Summer Sheldon. Y'all remember that snow that we had? That's just an example of what Summer has done for our Facebook. It's almost immediately as something happens, it shows up on Facebook. And she's continually sending out a monthly newsletter with outstanding articles from department heads and need-to-know information for the public. She keeps posting on the city's Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram pages, interesting and relevant. While I was doing my CMFO, she filled in for me as the city recorder so that everything kept going. She began attending conferences and training courses to pursue accreditation as a municipal clerk a requirement of being an assistant city recorder, and that's succession planning, because you never know. She compiles monthly department reports for presentation to the commission. Everything, when Martin sends that out to you guys, it's because Summer has gathered it and presented it to them. And she maintains a strong relationship with Bridget Raper, who handles the city's press releases. She's our PIO that works with College Yale Small Cities Coalition. April Sledge, the assistant CFO payroll clerk. She also began attending conferences and training courses to pursue accreditation as a municipal clerk. Because we're just trying to work on all the positions for cross training and just pursuit of being better at what they do. She began assisting the CFO, Ms. Pickle, with journal entries. That's when, like all of our due tos and due froms, when we have one account owes another account something in our internal loans, she can help take care of that now. She became more involved in the city's online banking platforms. She's proactive in the positive pay system where she checks for and denies fraud alerts. And she will soon begin assisting with bank account balancing. And Ruthie has brought many manual operations up to date by incorporating the processes into the city's automated system, iWork, thanks to Public Works, such as business licenses, home occupancy permits, beer licensing renewals and invoicing, record permits, and inspections. As an department, we are working to centralize all the forms that everybody in the department needs, the city needs to use, updating job descriptions, digitizing personnel files. The last 3 years, we have just kind of decided that we needed to start recognizing our employees, make them know that we do appreciate everything that they're doing for us. So we identified National Days of Recognition. We working to implement the consent agenda, which y'all saw. We'll see tonight. Implemented appropriate fringe benefit taxing to payroll function, additional life insurance and unmarked take-home vehicles, continual reevaluation of administration and finance functions to identify needed software upgrades, shifting of miscellaneous responsibilities, or needed training in areas of deficiency. We'll maintain all required continuing education training to maintain certifications. We also, this year finally, provisioned the commissioners with devices to eliminate paper agendas. Reduced copies maintained on file in an effort to move towards a paperless culture. We continue to champion the evolution and maturation of the city's social media presence. We brought on Juan Aponte as a part-time web designer. So all those little changes we need made to our website that we just can't seem to get to, Juan is helping us take care of those. And I put that in there twice, I'm sorry. The consent agenda.
Was real excited about it.
It's important.
It's very exciting.
So for this year, what we hope to do is, now that I'm done with CMFO, enhance commission meetings with added digital functionality like time stamping and bookmarking recordings and exploring electronic voting, automating beer license and permit applications on the iWork system, reconfigure the front desk for more ergonomic use, because it's really not very friendly up there. And streamline the transfer of payroll information from NextGen to My Benefits channel. NextGen is the software we use for payroll. My Benefits is an HR software that I use hopefully for other things besides this, but this is where everybody gets their pay stubs right now. And then it's not going to work out here, but the cat dances and she laughs. That's my grandbaby.
Aww, precious. Thank you so much. Sherm CMFO Perry.
Half the outfit.
Yes. Vice Mayor.
Thank you for the update. I was wondering specifically if your department was going to have any budgetary requests that would be significant changes over the previous budget year. If it'd be pretty much a continuation of
It's
previous
it's
years. I didn't hear you
probably
mention
gonna be a
any.
continuation and maybe some enhancements to some of the things that we're doing now. Like the My Benefits channel, I might look at some other modules to add on to it, but other than that, it's probably just gonna be just a
Yeah.
continuation.
I didn't see any new positions or anything like that. Okay.
I want to.
Now you mention it.
Not yet. Thank you, Miss Perry. Oh,
Excuse me, I think I
Sure.
have a question. The sister city,
Like our local
Eastridge,
small
y'all,
cities.
cities
oh,
around
okay,
us.
because I was thinking Ham, Germany.
Oh,
or-
I'm sorry.
I mean, that's what I'm familiar with.
No, we're not that little.
No, okay, so that is
Like just.
the
associated
local
cities,
small cities.
other
Yeah.
municipalities.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. So, Mr. Stoltz, I'm wondering, is it possible for us to table the next discussion, ask for comments? If there are no comments, can we go back to the presentation?
Of course you can.
Okay.
The commission can do whatever it wants to with
Okay.
this agenda.
Okay,
Just as long as nobody on the commission objects to not following the agenda.
okay,
And then you have to vote on it to change it.
okay. Do I have any objections to potentially temporarily tabling Ms. Johnson's presentation, asking for citizen comments, and if none, then returning to her presentation? Any objections to that?
No.
Okay, all right, so let's table her item, and the rest temporarily will move to citizen comments on items on the work session agenda. Mr. Granum?
Thank you, Mayor. This is the time for citizen comments. Please observe these rules. Comments are limited to 2 minutes for work session or less. The city recorder will operate a timer. Please respect her direction and conclude any comments if time expires. Comments should be addressed to the board as a whole and not to a particular commissioner, the city staff, or the audience. The commission is here to listen, not to respond or engage in back and forth, so please do not expect a reply during citizen comment. At this time, citizens are invited to the podium. Please begin by stating your name and address.
Okay, do we have any citizen comments on items on the work session agenda? Okay, if not, then we will return back to item number 3, brief commission on community development goals. Director Johnson. Thank you.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Pull up my PowerPoint, please.
You may need to talk fast.
You
Just
know
kidding.
it. So thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to kind of bring some things back to light. First and foremost, I think it's important to understand the mission statement of the department, which is to develop and implement creative community-based strategies to enhance economic opportunity, build strong neighborhoods, promote public engagement, and ensure a dynamic framework for quality growth and development of Red Bank. So looking briefly at some areas of focus that the Community Development Department does spend most of our time on, community planning initiatives, capital improvements planning, community development and code enforcement, and community engagement and board representation. Taking a look briefly at the planning initiatives, a lot of these topics are very familiar because they're still very active and coming to closure here soon to be in preparation of the new budget year. But we do, again, are looking at the elements of our comprehensive plan, our small area study. One plan we know we have in store is to look at our land use regulations to update and revise those so that they are in harmony with our comprehensive plan. We support GIS services and resources for the city. Something I do want to point out here, Michael Pham is our community planner by title, but he also has a passion and a unique understanding of GIS. So he is very critical to support other departments. Historically, we've had to go to other agencies to hopefully get the resources that we wanted, but Michael is able to operate our own system. Short notice, police department, fire department needs something. especially when it comes time to illustrating or highlighting an area of focus. He's capable of producing those maps at a high quality. So I do want to give a shout out to Michael on that aspect. It was a bonus that we learned after we onboarded him as a planner. So, but those two things do go hand in hand. Continuing on, you're familiar with our stormwater asset management plan. We hope to, in the next week or two, have all of our data uploaded into our iWork system so that it is what you would call live. As our stormwater crews are in the field, their tablets will be able to pull up that inventory, which will be labeled, numbered for future work orders and for just general information. So they know what we have, where it is, and the condition that it's in. So looking forward to that coming on board. And again, thanks to Public Works for iWorks. It's a tremendous, tremendous resource. Continuing on, we do look at grant resourcing and grant administration. And obviously we do work with the Public Works Department on some of their transportation and planning studies. Capital improvements plan, we have talked endlessly about the purpose of it and the goals for it. So just being mindful that it does help plan for future needs. It will ensure efficient use of resources. Budgeting and financing will become a priority for all capital improvement plans and projects while ensuring transparency and accountability. But it also is intended to enhance service delivery. Community development and code enforcement. This is where we focus in on planning and zoning. And again, GIS technical resources for the maps that come to you, especially when there's a rezoning. Somebody has to make that map, and I assure you it's not me. Code enforcement. I think this is an element that doesn't always get the attention that it deserves, but it is a critical piece of the department. Making sure that the public's health, safety, and welfare is always being at the forefront. It's not always pleasant to have to receive a notification from the city on a code violation, but we have procedures in place on how we walk those through. And sometimes we end up with going before our administrative hearing officer, which is a unique opportunity for property owners, the city, to engage with a third party who's neutral. Who has that mindful of how do we come to a resolution that's not always punitive. And again, looking at the stormwater utility administration, as we turn over our stormwater asset mapping and management plan to Public Works for ongoing, we will still continue to take assessment of the ordinance itself and make sure that the fees that are being charged are being appropriate for supporting that particular fund item. And looking at the last piece is community engagement and board representation. I do represent the city on the WWTA board. Very happy about that. They do a lot of good work. They're very active in their work sessions once a month, as well as a board meeting once a month. So there's really 2 full days that I do give them as best I can for all things that relate to the sanitary sewer system. Continue to work with SETD, even though we don't have an ongoing contractual relationship with them, or the portfolio of other resources that they do provide. So we continue that relationship with them. CARTA, McCamey, Public Art, that has been a new board that was created last year. I think they're really starting to find their footing. We've had a couple of projects come to you for art in public spaces, and we hope to continue to do more. Again, working with the Planning Commission, the BZA, and our Floodplain Review Board. So just looking back, a lot of these, I won't go through these line item by line item, they're very familiar to you. It just kind of shows you the timeline of how things have started and where we left them in December of 2024. And then moving forward, taking a look at kind of where we are now and where we hope to go. Again, a lot of these projects on the left-hand side you're very familiar with. But I will point out in red where it talks about budget development process to include the CIP goals. Again, that's going to be a very critical component on how we move forward with any and all planning initiatives that come out of all of our documents and our public engagement is how do we move those forward. But this is a highlight of what 25-month program potentially looks like, especially after July 1 moving forward when we embrace and take on commission goals for the rest of the year. And lastly, and it's not on my slide, I apologize, I added it last minute today, but I did give you a copy and it's attached to the packets in the back. I thought it was important just to lay out some general urban planning terminology. So as we can continue to talk about studies, concept plans, and actual plans for implementation, what are those differences? So when I talk about a study, keeping it through that lens, it really is an assessment. Concepts are visions. It's an illustration of what some desires are. Doesn't mean anything is concrete. It's not a focus. It's almost a blurred vision. But plans, that's when we start talking about implementation on different levels. Sometimes it could be plans that are implementing policies, practices, and goals, which is where your comprehensive plan comes in. Your Parks and Recreation Master Plan is another example of that. But you may also have plans that actually come with construction design documents. That means that we have walked it through a process. It's come to you, budget approved, it's ready to go, and we start seeing dirt getting turned, items being constructed. So just throwing a little bit of terminology out there. So as we continue to move forward, we're on the same page, hopefully.
Much appreciated.
And that is a quick version of what we do.
Thank you, Director Johnson. Do we have any questions at this time?
I have the same question that I had for Director Perry, which was, do you anticipate any major, budgetary changes this year over last year?
I don't, for a multitude of reasons. A lot of what we do is the planning, it's the researching, it's seeking grants. We do have room in our budget now, which incorporated our comprehensive plan and our small area study. So I don't foresee a change in that request. Those funds to me would just roll over for continuing some of these projects. More importantly, like our land use regulations, that'll be a heavy lift again through the rest of the year. But I think we are fine-tuned with what we have. Again, a lot of other projects and other departments carry a heavier load when things leave my department when we start looking at plans for implementation and construction.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
With the CIP, and each department has their potential budgetary request, as Vice Mayor has mentioned. Do you oversee or have communication with how that's in order of what the projects are coming down the pike for us?
Sure. One of the best things about this capital improvements plan that will come to you is each department has contributed what they see as their desires, whether it's short term, which would be under your fiscal operating budget for next year, or it's long term. What are we looking at, 2 years? Are they big projects, or 5 years out? That's where we, the city manager, finance, we will get together and try to help put some numbers associated with that and to present to you that you therefore start prioritizing. Right? What do we have to work on? What do we want to work on? And how are we going to balance those as far as making those affordable for debt service as we go forward? So ultimately, it will be Commission's decision on how these projects get prioritized. Some of them will be grouped and be collectively looked at. Some things are just hard set, equipment, vehicle replacement. Those are things that the city has to have to keep operating. So they're not fun, but they are, critical to the survival of the city and to support the residents. So yes, your retreat will have lots of opportunities for the commission to take a look at where do you guys want to see the city go and how soon do you want to get there? Did I answer your question? Thank you.
Thank you.
One more question. I think it maybe your second slide, you had a pie chart that had your department's different responsibilities there. I didn't know if that was because community planning had 3 ticks. I didn't know if that was representative of like the time.
Workload.
Yes, workload. So I was wondering if you anticipated that workload shifting as we start to wrap up these comprehensive planning processes.
No, not really. I think as we continue to move forward, all of these documents really are living documents. As we see the need for updates and for changes to those, that's going to require some commitment. But I also see the development department being key for helping plan with other departments. We don't function in silos. We function and work best together. So in areas of planning, that's where I can be helpful to other departments as they continue to move forward.
I guess for one example, as we hopefully soon adopt this new comprehensive plan, then you're going to be shifting your still planning focus, but now into the land use changes. So it's still,
Land use and zoning regulations are going to be, again, equally as consuming, and equally as important, if not more, than your comprehensive plan. Your plan lays out the visions and the desires, but your land use regulations are what allow things to happen.
rubber hits the road.
Absolutely, yes.
Mayor, may I add a comment?
Please, Mr. Graham.
On that community planning initiative? To me, one of the things that is the next move is to expand the sewerage of the city. And that would be a follow-on, wherever the comprehensive plan indicates that, then we have to really get busy and roll up our sleeves and figure out how to do that. That might even make that blue part of the pie even get bigger. In terms of the heavy lift that community development's gonna have to do to potentially expand the sewer area of the city.
We are a flexible department.
Which, will be a considerable area once moratoriums are, in a place to be lifted, right?
Yeah, and how do we plan for that to happen? We know
Right.
that's a
That's
needed
coming up.
plan.
Right.
And we're already seeing small pockets become available and viable for development.
Right.
So trying to be ahead of that again through comprehensive planning and land use regulations, trying our best to be prepared and encourage the development that we want to see.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your time. I think we're about to be into our 6 o'clock meeting, so we will have to table the remainder items. I'm sorry, Director Tate. You don't get to talk to us about the amazing work that Public Works did to help us with our snow and inclement weather events. Does anybody need a break before we transition into our regular meeting? It's pretty short,
Yeah.
so I think we could probably just
Power
move
through.
forward if everybody's okay with that. Okay,
As soon as,
so let's go ahead and adjourn the work session.
as soon as Tracy can switch the recording over.
Yep.